Hi, I'm Joe Thomas. I love teaching apologetics, evidence for God, and I especially love teaching about scientific evidence for God. And scientists love to talk about really big numbers. For example, astrophysicist Paul Davies, himself not a believer in God, tells us that if the gravitational force of the universe were different by 1 part in 10 to the 40th power, stars like our sun would never have formed and you and I wouldn't exist. So I want to take the next couple of minutes to talk to us about really big numbers. Let's face it, some of us aren't really math people, and most of us have been out of school long enough that we don't really use this stuff anymore. So I want to give you a couple of refreshers and a couple of practical examples to give an idea of what these big numbers really mean. You probably remember from school that the exponent is the little number to the upper right of your number. And it tells you how many times a number is multiplied by itself. 2 to the 5th power is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. That's 10 to the 5th. Normally, we express things using powers of 10. And a power of 10 tells you how many zeros there are after the 1. In other words, 10 to the 5th power is a 1 with 5 zeros after it. Scientific notation. Scientists and mathematicians use scientific notation. Instead of writing a giant long number, they give you an integer and a decimal and multiply it by a power of 10. For example, the current world population, 7.674 billion. I know I counted them all this morning, but that would be expressed in scientific notation as 7.674 times 10 to the ninth power. On your screen, you see some common powers of 10. 10 to the first is 10. 10 to the fourth is 10,000. 10 to the sixth is a million. 10 to the ninth is a billion. 10 to the 12th, a trillion. And 10 to the 15th is a quadrillion, really a bigger number than any of us can almost comprehend. Even our government hasn't found a way to spend $250 billion, at least not yet. Now, here's something that's a little tricky. 10 to the 12th, our brain wants to think it's twice as big as 10 to the 6th, but it's not the case. 10 to the 6th times 10 to the 6th is 10 to the 12th. In other words, 10 to the 12th is a million times larger than 10 to the 6th. So when you multiply numbers together, you add their exponents to one another. So let's put these numbers into perspective. The Earth has been around for about 4.5 billion years, and there have been about 10 to the 17th seconds in that time. God created the universe and the Big Bang approximately 14 billion years ago, and there have been 10 to the 18th seconds since then. How about all the particles in the universe? If you took every atom in the universe and added up the protons, neutrons, and electrons, you would come up with about 10 to the 80th elemental particles in our universe. So you couldn't even talk about counting 10 to the 82nd power of anything because there aren't that many things in the universe to count. And statisticians tell us that anything whose odds are greater than 1 chance in 10 to the 50th power is considered impossible. It will never happen. What about the Powerball? 1 chance in 292 million if you buy a single ticket. So if you bought a ticket every day for the last 800,000 years, you would have 292 million tickets. If you bought a million tickets tomorrow, your odds against winning would still be nearly 300 to 1. And so if you read that the odds of something happening is 1 chance in 10 to the 24th, that's the same as buying a lottery ticket this week and winning the Powerball, doing it again next week, and doing it again a third week. But of course, we know that's impossible, not only because the odds are too long, but because after the second week, the police would show up at your door. If you flip a coin, statistics, 1 chance in two, 50-50 or 0.5. What about rolling a dice? What are the odds of rolling a 1 chance in 6? Rolling a 1 twice or rolling snake eyes? 1 chance in 6 times 6 or 36. So if someone rolls snake eyes twice in a row against you, that's one chance in almost 1,300. And if they roll snake eyes 3 times in a row against you, they're not lucky. They're cheating because the odds are more than 1 in 46,000. How about another fun fact? Could you count to 1,000,000? Well, Jeremy Harper did. He spent 89 days in a row of his life, 16 hours a day, counting out loud to 1,000,000. He probably didn't have a girlfriend. It would take 89,000 days at Jeremy Harper's rate, 243 years to count to 1,000,000,000, and to count to 1,000,000,000,000, 243 years if all you did every day, 16 hours a day, was count. These are big, big numbers. So let's illustrate that 10 to the 40th. Remember what astrophysicist Paul Davies said about the coefficient of gravity. Change it 1 part in 10 to the 40th. Well, let's take all of North America from Alaska all the way across Canada down to the tip of Mexico and cover it with a layer of 1 dime. 1 dime across the entire continent of North America, and you would have $7.5 quadrillion worth of dimes. That's not 10 to the 40th power, is it? So how do we get to 10 to the 40th power? Stack those dimes all the way to the moon, about 250,000 miles. Take a red Sharpie, mark 1 dime, and take your best friend and blindfold him or her and let them wander between here and the moon. Pick out the right dime on the first try. And do that 1,000,000,000,000 times in a row. And now you know how big 10 to the 40th power is. Really big numbers. We're going to talk a lot about that in classes that I teach about scientific evidence for God. Thanks for listening.